Welcome to Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teskey, and today I'm joined by Mike Crawford from the Young Jurks in Boston. Mike, thanks for being here with me tonight.
Thank you, Caleb, for having us.
And this is a late night interview here, but this is really one of the biggest stories I've seen coming out of the cannabis industry since I started covering this. Really, before we hit that story, though, would you share your 5 minute life story with us, if you would
Uh,
want?
I'm old, so I got a lot of story, but I'll try to keep it short.
Make it 10. I don't give a shit.
I'm a working class guy, worked a lot of jobs, worked a union job through college. So that was my first experience being in a dangerous, work environment and seeing that the workers were actually protected in that environment because we had a say through the union, helped me get me through college. I was a jock, a wrestler. I went to college for wrestling,
No
and
shit.
I was pretty good amateur wrestler, and basically injuries wiped me out in college, and later on, I always had sciatica and back issues, one leg longer than the other, and later on, I was a high school wrestling coach in open mat wrestling, another coach off season USA wrestling, open mats, what we used to call them, and I got slammed. I was wrestling the guy, really good wrestler, and I kind of showed him up in front of his team, and he came back and got me good, and lateral drop right on my back, and I couldn't get up. I was crawling on the floor. Um, it was bad, and I knew instantly that moment changed my life, like the back pain. Really, the moment I became a medical cannabis patient, you
Mm.
know, I soon discovered the pills and the alcohol. Those weren't going to help me with the pain. What I had, used for fun before was the best pain reliever. Besides Tylenol, I still take Advil and Tylenol, all those pills, but I'm very concerned with them because my family always has liver issues. And so I found medical cannabis right away. I was later arrested for it, lost a career over. I was a financial advisor for a long time.
No
Basically
shit.
lost that career because of a cannabis arrest, which is really crazy. Just possession too. So as a, before, and, because of that arrest, I ended up being an activist. I was already an activist for cannabis before that, but I even upped it even more. I was part of the campaigns for decrim, medical, legal. I was on the board for Mass Can Normal, which is our local cannabis reform coalition. Booked a lot of the events, especially the freedom rallies, national music acts. I did a lot of, probably about 100 fundraisers for Mass Can, mostly booking local rock bands. So that was our movement. We really killed it. We changed laws. And then I started getting more involved in media. And I left Mass Can to focus on the media work. Today, I'm a full-time dog walker. I have a dog care business, self-employed. Me and my girlfriend both do it. She has a music podcast. She used to be a big music radio DJ. Her station got sold. My station, we decided to close it when COVID happened. So we both get to do our shows, our podcast at home. We work locally in the area. We don't have to commute anywhere. We're living the dream. We love dogs and we love doing our podcast. We've been covering the worker right issue. I've written for Dig Boston and some other publications over the years, and we did quite a bit of podcasting and written interviews published in Dig Boston about worker issues, worker safety issues in the cannabis space, and specifically with New England Treatment Access. We went over that extensively about the mold and all the risks that people were going through. And that's kind of how this latest story landed in our lap, because we
Yeah,
covered
yeah.
this
So,
stuff.
so let's talk about that. So, I mean, this is obviously, and it seems like from what you've told me that a lot of the bigger news outlets aren't picking up on this. But really, to me, this seems like one of the biggest stories that I've ever heard, honestly. And I'd love to hear how it landed in your lap. I understand you've had some talks with the families. I'd love to hear all about that.
Yeah, basically we're talking about Lorna McMurrey. She was a Trulieve, Holyoke cannabis cultivation worker who passed away in January of this year, right at the beginning of the year, and no one knew about it. No one was talking about it. I didn't know about it until basically, what has it been, like 3 weeks ago? I mean, it was basically about 3 weeks ago, I believe, that I found out about it. And I was tipped off by someone who's been a guest on our show recently, someone that we're working with on advocacy. She's great. Her name's Kim Napoli. I've known her for, probably 25, 30 years now. Both of us doing our thing with advocacy around cannabis. And she's on the state cannabis advisory board. They call it the CAB. So what they do is they advise the Cannabis Control Commission that runs things. Advisory board doesn't have a vote so much. They have a vote among themselves, but they're really advising the Cannabis Control Commission. It's kind of the community space. So she's on that board, and she's the one who said, Mike, did you see this post? Take a look at it. I know that there's more to it. You need to look into this. And as soon as I saw the post, it was from Danny. It was on Facebook. It was just basically saying, my coworker passed away. And because of that, OSHA is now doing new trainings. And it's because of Lorna. Sad that someone had to die, but we're finally getting some progress with OSHA. And that was posted, I think, in June or July. But I found out, basically about 3 weeks ago, I found out about it. And I just read the post, saw the comments, and saw the family was on there, saw the friends were on there. And I just started reaching out. And that's how the ball started rolling on that.
And you've had, you talked to the stepdad?
Yes, I've talked to the mom, talked to the stepdad, talked to her friends, I've talked to her coworkers.
Right. And I'd love to hear as much of this as we can really dig into without you, without any privacy concerns.
That's what I'm always worried about.
Sure. But
I will say that there are like a couple things. When this story broke recently, the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission put out some statements. And one of the statements was that they care about their registered agents, the workers. I've spoken to basically about 100 of them, maybe even more at this point, both through my show, through private conversations, through going into these places. I've talked to, I'm guessing about 100 at this point, maybe even higher than that. And I don't know any of them that feel like the Cannabis Control Commission is looking out for them or worried about them. And I can't find any action that the Cannabis Control Commission has done to actually protect the workers. There's not like one regulation proposal that they've pushed to protect workers. There's nothing. There's nothing that they've done. They've covered up everything. So that's number one. Number two, they put out a statement basically saying that it's unfortunate this has come to light, and this is, almost like we're harming the family by talking about this, that this is, re-traumatizing the family to bring this up now after all these months later. Well, I've talked to the family, and as far all their interaction and the friends and the coworkers, every interaction from them is they're excited. They're happy. I'm not going to say excited. There's nothing to be excited about. They're almost like relieved, and they're happy that what happened to Lorna is finally being heard, and that people are responding. They are happy about it. Now, Cannabis Control Commission, I don't know if they've actually talked to the parents or the family. I don't know if they've sat on the phone with them for a half hour and basically, wanted to cry. I mean, the conversations I'm having with them, it makes me want to cry. And I have been crying. Like it affects me that deeply. Like I know how much stepdad Dave and the mom Laura cared about Lorna and how much they missed them. And you can hear it in the recordings with Dave. You can hear everything, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And the stuff that they tell you even off the air is even, this is a real situation. So, my feeling is that we're here for the workers. We're here for her friends. We're here for her family. And we're doing what, we feel that they want, which is to tell the story, to tell the truth, and to get some changes. That, both parents say they don't want this to happen to anyone else's child. And
I'm going to tell you, Mike, I was one of the people, you told me on the phone, you said some people, when they read the story, they didn't even believe it. And I was one of those people. I read the headline and I was like, come on. I shot it out to a bunch of people that I knew, and I was like, can someone confirm this? Because this seems ridiculous. Like, That's not a real headline, right? Like someone died. What, like cranking out pre-rolls at a Trulieve factory? Like that seemed unbelievable to me a little bit.
Yeah, I can get that. The general public doesn't get the risk. You know, I did another show recently, a New Jersey show. Lefty, the host, brought it up. He said, you know, decades ago, they didn't realize that firefighters needed masks and equipment. These guys used to go in with just you know, cloth bandana, if anything. It took years to realize the great risk, not just from getting burned alive, but from the smoke inhalation. Same thing with cigarettes, right? I mean, so many years it was denied that it caused cancer. Well, I think this is the same type of thing in this cannabis space, is that people have no idea. And that's the tragedy about Lorna. You know, I don't know if she knew. And if she did know, you know, I think a lot of them know in the back of their mind, but it's very easy to say, no one's going to die. Not that, you know what I mean? Because it's easy to deny it because it doesn't seem possible. It doesn't seem possible you're going to go into this place and not come home, but that's what happened.
Hmm.
And when we talk, you know, like I'm not making this stuff up too. Like for me, it's not surprising. And the reason it's not surprising to me is because I've talked to hundreds of the employees. And the employees say that it's the same stories over and over again. That
Right.
they go into these
What are you
places,
hearing from the employees, Mike?
COPD, bronchitis, asthma, respiratory issues. They young people, these are people in their mid-20s. Lorna was 27, didn't have asthma until she started working at this place. It's very
Who owns these dispensaries down here or these facilities down in Massachusetts?
well, there's a lot of them. So you know, I don't want to put blanket statement and say they all
No.
have these issues, but a lot of them do. And I think the issues, what you're going to find is the larger operators, the multi-state operators. Trulieve, multi-state operator. We're hearing about some mold and INSA, multi-state operator. Holistic Industries. I'm not sure. Yeah, actually, yeah, multi-state operator. I mean, these are the largest, the biggest companies, you know, and if you look at their stock prices, they're way down. They have a huge amount of debt on their back, not getting any tax relief from the federal government. So who pays? And they have everybody in the government looking for more money from them, both from the state to the local. And who pays for all that? I'll tell you who. It's the patients and especially the workers, the low wage worker. They're risking their life, and people don't recognize that risk, both with mold and the dust particles. These places don't have the proper what do you call that, air, you know, quality. There's not enough circulation going through there. They're not doing the HVAC updates. It's not proper. You know, we're going to actually bring some scientists on our show who have been going into these places, and they're going to tell us like what is actually going on
In
and it's
Massachusetts.
and nationally. You know, this is all over the country. And you know what they're saying is you're going to end up seeing an epidemic. You know how we see commercials for, you know, toxic substances, and people going to be those types of lawsuits 10 years from now. People going to have the green lung is what they're calling
If
it.
your loved one was
Yeah, you worked at large indoor cultivation and you end up with respiratory issues years later, you can sue. That's what's going to happen. And you know what's exciting about this, and the reason why we're going to keep fighting for this and keep bringing it in, is that we're hearing there are changes happening. You know, Cannabis Control Commission, I don't know if we're ever going to see a change. We have to demand it. I think it's a corrupt organization. I think they're anti-worker. I think they've covered up everything. But I heard today from an employee at one of these large multi-state operators that they came in like today and we're like, here, we're giving you all respirators because we can't afford that kind of lawsuit. So things are starting to change, hopefully. I think a lot of places, it's from what I'm hearing, it's the talk at every cultivation
but
site.
is that sort of after the fact?
It is,
Eh,
but you know, it's better now than never. I mean, do we want to have more Lornas die? You know, I mean,
hmm.
I mean, they should have definitely been doing this a long time, but you know, we don't stop giving firefighters respirators because we screwed up yesterday. You know what I mean? Like
No.
yeah,
True.
we
It,
gotta
it
we
just
gotta fix this.
it kind of blows my mind, you know, because boy, I've known a lot of weed growers and a lot of people that process weed in all kinds of different ways, and nobody has ever died, man.
Right. So that's again, this is a perfect example where we think the legal market's supposed to be safer, right? Well, in reality, you know, it's not. And a lot of this, like when we bring these scientists on, I had a conversation with one of them yesterday. he says a lot of it is due to the regulations and the setups of these places. And that the regulators don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They're regulating all the wrong things. They're talking about, oh, we gotta have 1 million cameras in there in case someone takes a joint, steals a joint. No one's stealing from those places. The problem is the health and safety of the workers. There's no regulations for that. There's nothing. They're not doing anything. They're covering it up at every opportunity. And you're right. I don't think you're going to find this type of situation for a small grower who has maybe 10, 15 plants at his house. Maybe he has 100. You're talking about thousands, tens of thousands of plants in a place they don't give a shit about their workers. That's a different situation than what you see even in the larger, even in the larger grows in the illicit market. I don't think they're as large as these big grows are. And a lot of that was outdoors too. I think a lot of stuff was still grown outdoors in the traditional market.
Yeah, definitely up here.
Yeah. So the big warehouse indoor cultivation on a large scale, that's problematic. And I don't think it cannot be done correctly. It just, you have to care. You have to focus on that air quality every single day. You have to change your filters. You have to have an HVAC system that works and a plan. And, you have to be doing all these other things that they're not doing.
It does seem like, I've met a lot of really amazing growers that aren't necessarily amazing business owners, and vice versa. Business owners that don't really know about growing anything. Chads, if you will. But to find a nice combination of that, it does seem kind of rare here. And in Vermont, there was a lot of statements by the legislatures. They were going to help people that were negatively impacted by the war on drugs and this and that. But it seems like at the end of the day, this really has favored just people that have money to start businesses, and a lot of people that, suffered the consequences of the war on drugs necessarily didn't get as much of a leg up as it was said would be done.
Absolutely. Same in Massachusetts.
Really?
I mean, I look at Maine, right? Maine, I think, has the best model. They let everyone open. Anyone who wanted to open, they made it very easy. They got thousands of legal medical caregivers up there. They licensed those guys, the smaller guys, first. And then years later, they said, okay, you can open a big, years later, they let the caregivers actually, who were selling to customers directly, they let them open storefronts. And then later on, they let the big boys come in and open bigger dispensaries. And it's like Massachusetts and a lot of other states, I'm not sure how Vermont's doing it. We did it the opposite. We said only big money can open it first. You got to have millions of dollars in the bank. You got to go through all this red tape. And so you got the people with the money who don't know what the hell they're doing, like you're talking about, that grow shit weed, and they only care about making their money back. Yeah. And then now we're starting to let the smaller players in, but they're getting screwed because the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission, who do you think they give a hard time to? Are they giving a hard time to Trulieve, who is one of the biggest operators in the nation, or are they going to give crap to my friend who's a micro grow who only has one location? It's very small. He can't sell directly to customers. They're going to harass the small grow. I mean, that's what's happening in Massachusetts. So, top down is not good for cannabis.
A couple women, one of the ladies from the Massachusetts Control Commission was on the, she was with the advisory team with the Vermont Control Board. Boy, the NACB or Vincente Strategies, they had a couple representatives from Massachusetts, and I thought that was odd. Like,
who are they?
I'm gonna have to get back.
Was it Kim Napoli or Shalene or any of those? No.
No. I'm gonna get you their names. I'm gonna have to come back to you on that. Yeah. But that's a great point. Yo, all right. How is it going in Massachusetts as far as you're concerned? And I mean, aside from this death, which was the worst story I've really read ever.
It's not going good for workers. I'll tell you that. It's not going good for workers. I don't think it's going good for anybody, even big cannabis. Look at their stock price. I don't think it's going good for anybody, honestly. I think the only one it's going good for is the state who's getting revenue. It's about in the cities and towns who are getting the revenue. But who's suffering? The workers. You know, who's suffering? The consumers. So many of our consumers, medical patients, are still like me. When I can, I go up to Maine. You know, I'll drive by 10 dispensaries to go to Maine because it's a better quality product.
Boy, Maine's killing it with the concentrates. Oh man, yeah.
But I mean, the thing about mass, we're starting to finally see prices come down. You know, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And there's a lot more adult use finally opening. So you know, hopefully we got some changes last time from the CCC that help patients and consumers. We hope to see more of that, and hopefully we'll, like my friend that you know is a micro grower. We want him to be able to sell direct to consumer is another thing. So we're hoping there's a lot more changes coming with the Cannabis Control Commission, but it'd also be nice for the Cannabis Control Commission to do something to help the workers, like mandate CPR training, force them to have respirators on hand, you know, things that might have saved someone like Lorna or someone in the
You
future.
mentioned that, huh? No one was trained at CPR.
I don't know if no one was trained, but I
Oh,
know
okay.
from what I understand from people that were there and people that work there who have heard through the grapevine and the family, that they don't believe anyone tried CPR on Lorna when she passed out until the paramedics arrived.
Damn.
I mean, this is something like, you know, we talked about another show, Lefty show. He said, you know, when I was a camp counselor, we had a class, everyone could go get free CPR. Why aren't the dispensaries doing that? Why isn't the CCC encouraging it? They have all these regulations and rules. There's nothing ever for the workers. Nothing ever.
Interesting. In Vermont, we have a bud tender training that you have to take, but I don't believe it involves any CPR training at all.
Maybe you know, I think bud tender probably should take some CPR training for the customers because you got medical patients coming in. But I don't think it's as much like a need as the cultivation sites. I don't think a bud tender has the same type of risk from the, you know, inhalation and the accidents. There are, you know, we're just talking about COPD and the inhalation and how Lorna died. There are a lot of other risks at these places too. Like we're talking about ozone. I talked to someone on the phone just the other day who got poisoned by ozone.
No
You
shit.
know, these are things that I don't think many of the illicit market guys were using ozone. And why are they using ozone? To beat the test, to beat these tests. So again, sometimes the regulations create more problems, more harm.
And do a lot of the regulators necessarily understand the way that people are growing
No,
their herb?
that's that, you know, talking to one of the scientists last night that we're going to have on our show pretty soon. He said, you know, look at the Mass Cannabis Control Commission. Not one person on that board has ever grown cannabis. They're not horticulture experts. Not one of them is a scientist. You know, there's none of that. That's what's lacking. And there's no you know, occupational safety person. There's none of that. There's none of it. There instead they have someone who's you know, a prohibitionist, someone who's like, you know, with the AA crowd and the, you know, just say no. That's their health and safety person on the board of the Cannabis Control board. Someone who's
There's a lot of
anti-science.
those in there.
Someone who doesn't believe in the science. That's who they have. Instead of having scientists on the Cannabis Control Commission, Charlie Baker, the governor, decided to put someone on who's anti-science. So again, this is what I'm so and people want to say it's the Democrats' fault and I'm a liberal and I won't cover it. No, it's both parties. We have a Republican governor and we have a Democrat AG and what do you call her? Deb Goldberg, the treasurer. So we have split, and they're all corporate. They're all corporate. All three of them. They're picking the worst people.
Hey, yeah, yep. I feel that. And you know, it does seem though, like when you look at the results of what comes out of the legislation, like, yeah, it's not very good. Yeah. You've put people in charge that don't really know what they're talking about.
and don't even know where to look. I mean, I'd be fine if there was a non-science person on there, if they believed in science and went to scientists, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not a scientist, so you go to real scientists and find out. But they're not doing that.
I got a physics degree.
You do? There you go.
Yeah, I went to WPI, motherfucker.
Yeah. See, I got a history degree, and I know when I want to talk science, I go talk to a scientist.
But
You know what I mean? Like, why aren't they doing that?
it does seem like some of the consulting firms that they hired to bring in, like, also don't really know what they're talking about either.
Yeah.
That was
Cannabis consultants and attorneys. I mean, that's what it is. It's just a bunch of, we know how to file the right paperwork, and we know who to grease the right politician's palm to get this passed. We know how to make campaign donations to the right people.
And Trulieve provided convertible debt to Slang to purchase 2 of the medical dispensaries here in Vermont.
And guess who paid for that?
Well,
The workers. Lorna's dead body. That's what paid for that. Like that's why Lorna is dead, because they pile so much debt. This company, they're all debted out. Like, I would not be surprised if Trulieve eventually files for bankruptcy. Not even related to the Lorna issue, just the way their business is set up. It's whack. And that company shouldn't even be allowed. I don't know how they're getting licensed. I don't know. You have the CEO of the company. Her husband is in jail, federal jail, for bribing public officials.
yeah,
How is that company licensed? How is she still the CEO? And this isn't just like, oh, well, it's unconnected. It was someone in that was the husband. What she didn't know. It was a totally different. No, it's related to the business of Trulieve. That's what the public bribery was about. So this is directly related to the business. And why are they licensed in Massachusetts? And then they killed somebody. I'm going to say it. Like, I feel like that they are, like, everything I've seen, I think they're very responsible for what happened to Lorna. And I want to see them shut down. I think that people shouldn't buy their products. They should take it off the shelves, and they should be contacting every single elected official, the mayor of Holyoke, all the state reps and state senators, cannabis control commissioners, and demand that they get shut down. Trulieve.
What was the punishment? Wasn't there a fine or something?
Well, OSHA actually did an investigation and did find them, and they fined them for, like, improper training, for not, given, again, a lot of this is education. If you don't know the risks, if you're not getting the proper training. So a lot of that, it's basic shit. And I'm glad they did find him. I think they should have fined him a lot more. I think they should try to shut them down. I hope they are considering doing a lot more. But the Cannabis Control Commission, right? This happened in January. Now October. We found out about this in September, right? The only transparency they've given is they told everyone that Trulieve is under investigation for this. They didn't tell us when the investigation.
The real shocking part was the time split.
Yeah, so that's what I want to, because that time split is so telling. Happened in January. We're in October. You're still investigating. When did the investigation start? Did it start in January,
Right.
Or did it start 3 weeks ago when we broke the news?
Right, and like, when did the family find out?
Yeah. The mayor found out 3 weeks ago when we broke the news.
Wow.
Mayor of Holyoke didn't know. So I'm wondering, we want to know, did the Cannabis Control Commission know? And if they didn't know, then why is Trulieve even still open? Like, they should be shut down.
The mayor didn't know.
The mayor of Holyoke didn't know. And I heard he's pissed. So hopefully maybe he'll shut them down. I don't know if he has that power, but
so who grabbed this? I saw a couple of, like, local, like, I saw High Times grab
everybody.
This.
Yeah. Leafly called
me
against.
What is this? MSN, Western Mass News, Leafly. You said you were maybe having some trouble. You said maybe the Boston Globe didn't want to touch this or something. Like, this seems like
everybody.
A big story.
It's basically it broken. It's funny because Massachusetts. You think cannabis coverage. You think Boston Globe right now. You think that they're going to cover this because that's their beat right now. But they kind of scale back, and I think that some of them have a vendetta with me, a weird vendetta. And I don't even want to make it personal. People give me shit about that, saying I'm cheapening the story by talking about that stuff. But I'm trying to be truthful here. And I feel like a lot of times I feel like I've even covered for them. You know, for 5 years they didn't do a story on
But,
this.
and you said
And
you said you've seen this coming for quite some time
well,
now.
it's the workers. The workers felt like they never got any, you know, the Globe wasn't helpful. They took it to the Globe and the Globe wouldn't respond. Globe didn't do anything. And so now they have, I think, you know, I think it's maybe embarrassment too. You know, they let this go for 5 years and, you know, these bad working conditions. And now it blew up in their face, basically. And it broke in Western Mass. It's broke in Springfield and Worcester. Those newspapers, they broke it. It broke nationally. It's been in High Times, Leafly, like you said. Benzinga did 2 stories before the Globe put out one. The Globe finally did a story after I bashed him on Twitter. 8 hours later, they put up a story and it's cut and paste. There's no original reporting. They basically quoted all the different stories, everyone that, you know, except us. You know, that was again noticeably. Everyone linked us except the Globe, basically. I mean, I think that pretty much says it all, right? But I mean, I know that the big media outlets, the national outlets, they're still on it. You know, High Times, you know, did a follow-up story. Leafly called today. They're doing another follow-up story. There's a lot of different outlets looking into this.
And it was honestly just like I said, man, I didn't even believe it when I read your story. I posted it up and I said, "Can anyone confirm this?" Because I didn't believe that shit.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I think it's shocking until you look into it.
Well, you know, and when I look at sort of the corporate culture of some of these bigger MSOs, I mean, even you know, like Curaleaf, it just multiple lawsuits. They've bought out a couple dispensaries in Vermont, multiple lawsuits for mislabeling their products or stealing tips from their employees or
OSHA
you know,
complaints.
yeah, you
We've
know,
been pulling OSHA complaints this week. There's a lot of them against a lot of these firms. Yeah.
yeah, and they are all losing money. I've seen a very distinct curve of there's maybe like 2 at the top that seem to be profitable, but um, it seems wild. Like all the guys that I always knew that was selling weed on the black market were profitable.
They didn't have all these hands in their pockets. And they
Yeah,
weren't trying to sell investors on that they're going to own the market in 30 years. It's going to be this huge multiple. And, you know, it's a game. It's like, my girlfriend, she did radio for a number of years. And the last big corporate chain she worked for is called Entercom. And if you look at Entercom right now, they're like the last player standing, one of the largest ones. They bought all the CBS stations. It's the same deal. They took on so much debt and bought all these stations thinking that they were going to have a huge multiple and that it would just, you know, it'd be awesome. And instead, the opposite happened. COVID-19 happened, advertising economy tanked. And their stock is like at 20 cents, just like the cannabis companies. And they're screwed. Like they bought stations for like, you know, $20 million a piece. They're worth like 200,000 if you actually look at like, you know, divide how many stations they have by their actual stock value. It's crazy.
it seems like there's a lot of that in Massachusetts. A lot of startups, a lot of weird little yeah.
Well, I think it's those big corps where they're trying to be Amazon. They're trying to buy out a market, you know, and that's kind of the cannabis idea. Curaleaf wanted to be the big player, right?
Which seems odd, seeing as we have these sanctions against Russia, and it seems like their major investors are Russians.
Yeah, I know, right?
Uh,
You want there's a lot of there's a lot that doesn't. It's so funny when you start looking into all this shit, you realize that a lot of times crime does pay. I mean, look at Donald Trump. I mean, crime does pay. A lot of criminals are able, it just doesn't pay if you're a low level criminal.
yeah, but you
You
got
know
to
what I mean?
really shoot big.
You'll pay a huge price, but if you're a larger criminal, a lot of times you get away with this stuff.
Mm. You're right. Yeah, that's exactly right. You got to, you know, low level crime doesn't pay. High level crime, you could make it work. Now, Mike, how many employees have you talked to from these companies? I feel like you said maybe 100 or
100,
so.
I'd say 100 plus. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, if you look at some of the shows, I mean, some of the shows we had a half dozen a piece on there, you know what I mean? Just, if you look at the Netta employees, I mean, we have on the record at least 20 employees from New England Treatment Access over the years. So, I mean, that's 20 right there. That's just one place, never mind Revolut, you know, a lot of other places too. It just, yeah.
Mm.
And you hear the same stories over and over again.
Yeah.
Gaslighting. They treat you like crap. They make you do stuff that's dangerous. If you bring it, if anyone who brings up safety or any, you know, wants further education, any of that stuff, you're now ostracized, made fun of, picked on, yelled at, written up for stupid stuff, and often fired. I mean, that's how this works.
And that's just, it seems totally counter intuitive. I don't know, counter. All the weed growers I know are very nice.
Right?
There's never been that kind of attitude around any of the grows I've ever been privy to.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's big cannabis, big bad cannabis. That's what I say.
So what? How much do you think it would take to start? Like, if I wanted to start a dispensary in Massachusetts, how much do you think that would cost me?
Oh, it's millions, millions. I mean, you know, and you'd have to ask the guys that are doing it now. I mean, things change every single month here, you know, but it's a lot of money. I mean, there are some guys who are doing it without all that money, and they're trying to, you know, do it themselves. They do a lot of the, you know,
Bootstrapping?
yeah, parking studies and all that crap. They'll just come up with it, but you know, generally most people are millions of dollars, and even those guys that do it themselves, eventually they come to a point where they need more money, and it's about the rent. Like, you know, a lot of this, you want to license in Massachusetts, you know, for, you know, this might have changed recently too, but forever you had to get a host community agreement, which meant you need to have a property set aside that you wanted to grow in or sell in, right, or manufacture in. And most of these applicants don't own the property, so they're paying rent for an empty building for 3 years before they can even open. So that's a huge cost right there. I
That's what
mean,
I was wondering. Also, like, who's growing all the weed in Massachusetts?
mostly big cannabis, but that's starting to change.
Yeah.
There's a lot more growers coming on, and that's why you're starting to see the price finally come down.
Hmm.
I think you're gonna see a lot more of that, but I think it's also scary because it's, you know, it'll be good for us patients finally get a break, but you know, I think it's gonna wipe out a lot of the smaller grower, you know, smaller guys that we want to succeed,
Hmm. Damn.
that just wasted 3 years, you know, renting a space to try to open. And now they're realizing they'll probably never recoup that money. You know, I mean, that's a situation. These guys are borrowing money to pay rent for an empty building for 3 years. Why this
Yeah.
Cannabis Control Commission decides if they can open,
Hmm.
and you need investors. I mean, I don't know about you, but most people can't pay $10,000-$20,000 a month for an empty building for 3 years.
I can't.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then you need consultants and lobbyists, and you know, unless you don't have a, you know, unless you don't have a job and you want to do all that yourself.
Hmm.
A lot of these applicants have full-time jobs, you know, so they're doing it at the same time while they're working another career. And a lot of them end up giving up or selling out. They'll sell out to big cannabis and they'll end up selling at a loss. After 2.5 years of almost getting there and spending all their money, they end up in debt, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna have to sell out to big cannabis, and I'm still not gonna make my money back.
Damn. That is what I think that is what I was afraid of.
But Maine, that doesn't happen, because Maine actually said, we're going to let everyone open. We're going to license everybody. We're not going to make you wait 3 years to get licensed.
Yeah, they have like 900 dispensary applications or licenses issued. I got to
In
hold their
Maine.
master list. Yes, it's ridiculous. There's just a ton of them.
Yeah.
Hmm, hmm. Hmm. Curious. So like
No
who?
limits. We should never have any limits.
I'm always curious, like who's making the money. It would be nice to see the farmers make some money one time, and you know, like just to come back, honestly, the story about Lorna, like um, that was really the most tragic shit I've read. Honestly, I've been covering this for almost a year, and I've really never read anything like that, and it really, my heart went out to the family, and you know, boy,
Yeah, that's so
but
weird. We predicted something. We said, "What's it gonna?" Like, we joked about it. We said, "What's it gonna take someone to die for them to finally take care of the workers?" And then I'm talking to her stepdad. She's 20. She was 27, and she really looked like a nice kid. It's like,
mm, yeah,
I'm
what do you?
crying again, man.
Uh,
I like her stepdad a lot. I like the mom. I like the whole family and friends. They're nice people, working class, like me, working class. That just starting a life. She getting her shit together. She had some issues, mental health. Her friend was telling us, Danny, but Lorna was doing
yeah,
good. Like,
who doesn't?
right? I know.
Yeah. Wow.
It's great to see people come through that, and then have it taken away by this shitty company that still hasn't done shit for her.
So what do we do here, Mike?
Oh,
Like,
we keep raising hell.
eh,
That's me. I think everybody, you just gotta keep, I love the media folks, and all even the folks who aren't in the media who are sharing it and commenting on it and telling their friends about it, telling your coworkers about it, bringing it up at work, risking your job to bring it up. A lot of people are risking jobs to bring this stuff up at work, but
mm,
people do. They don't give a shit because they know what's at stake. And I think that's what we need to continue to do. And we need to stop boycotting some of these companies. Trulieve. No one should be buying Trulieve right now. No one should sell it on their shelves. Stores and dispensaries that are selling that shit should get boycotted too. You should be ashamed if you're carrying Trulieve right now. And a lot of these other companies, we're gonna start coming up with who are the most likely to kill an employee next. Because we got a list of them with ocean complaints, mold complaints. We know who they are. So we're going to start calling out these operators. I don't know if we need to do protests. Something has to happen, but I think the biggest thing, put the pressure on the Cannabis Control Commission, and that includes the politicians. Hit up your local state senator, your state rep. They'll take your call, especially if you're in their district, and say, I want you to give them hell. I want you to threaten their funding if they don't help workers. Call your local union. If you're in a union, you should be asking them to support the workers. Call the politicians. Like, seriously, the politicians, they control the funding of the Cannabis Control Commission, threaten the funding. Say, if you don't
are
start work,
are your
Massachusetts is supposed to be a union state. We're supposed to care about workers. What the hell are they doing?
are your legislators in Massachusetts pretty approachable?
If you're in their district, yes, very approachable.
Yeah.
I mean, I pretty much have very good success reaching out to a lot of them. Like, even just not in my district because of who I am and my show and stuff. But I mean, I feel like they will get back to you. If they don't, their office will, and aid will, and especially if you're in their district. Yeah,
So why hasn't this been picked up in a big media outlet, man? This is a fucking huge story.
yeah. I think they're lazy. They don't know how to cover cannabis. It's easier to just print up a press release that Justin Bieber has released a new line of cannabis at New England Treatment Access, one of the worst operators, and not mention they're the worst operators. Just easy to copy and paste that little Justin Bieber thing, put it on your front page. You get 1 million views, right? That's what they do. They just go, oh, this celebrity just signed a deal. We got a press release from them. Let's put that up. That's what they do. They have budget cuts. They're lazy. A lot of the media, and I think certain ones I've called out tonight, but I think a lot of them are starting to wake up. Especially the big media, the national media.
I
They're
gotta
on.
say,
Like, yeah,
I was gonna say I'm a little lazy, Mike. And I've already picked up on it. So it seems like if you were a legitimate news organization, this is something you would like. Hmm. That's
I
why I'm
know.
not in charge of any of those places.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that a lot more are being made aware of it. So we'll see. I mean, I think the Globe, if the Globe wants to shut me down and have me stop bad mouthing them all around town about their lack of coverage for workers in the cannabis space, do something about it. Do a spotlight series on it. The reason I'm so mad at them is they could do coverage like no one else can. I don't have their funding. I don't have their manpower. I don't have their time. They could do stuff that we can't do, and people would listen to them. So to me, it's put up or shut up. But a lot of the other media, and we're at the point where it doesn't even matter anymore. And I'm almost ready not even to talk about the Globe anymore, because we got national media. We got Western mass media. We got Central mass media. We got even Boston, some Boston media outlets now covering it. So
that's good, man. And I mean, I can't believe that it just didn't. Some of that shit.
It all goes back to the Cannabis Control Commission too. I mean, let's put it that way. They're a cover-up organization. If the Cannabis Control Commission had balls and did their job, I think the Globe would actually cover it. Do you know what I mean? Like, the Cannabis Control Commission has basically told the Globe, hey, it's okay, we're covering it up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to see here. So I think the number one villain in this is the Cannabis Control Commission. Now, I'm going to take it right to the executive director, Sean Collins. What are you doing, Sean Collins, for workers? You haven't done enough for patients, but you really have done nothing for these workers.
Is Sean friendly? I'd love to have him on.
I mean, he seems friendly. He seems like a good guy. I don't know. I mean, I don't hear from these folks. They don't come on my show. I'm gonna start hitting them all up, though. I mean, I haven't hit them all up like I should. I hit up the new chairman this week, but I don't expect it, because the ones who are even more friendly with us, that will actually talk to us a little bit on Twitter, they don't even come on. There was only one Shalene Title. That's the way I feel. And Shalene Title was someone who was a Cannabis Control Commission that actually gave a shit about everything.
I've been trying to get
top to bottom.
I've been trying to get all there.
She cared. And what did they do to her? They were like, "Oh, we're not going to reappoint you because you make us look bad." The governor didn't, he didn't like it that she pushed back against his bullshit.
Well, that's what you get for caring.
There you go. And so the rest of them, I just think that they're afraid. I think that they're so afraid to say anything because they haven't done anything. And to me, this is like criminal. Like, I feel like some of these folks should be in jail for what they've done to the workers here. So, that gives people an incentive to be quiet, right?
I'd love to talk to Shalene, by the way.
Maybe once you post this, maybe we could hook that up. She'll see it, and
all right, Mike.
She'll make her judgment. I can't speak for Shalene, but I know one thing: Shalene checks out content. If she likes it, she'll probably come on.
Cool.
That's my guess.
Well, I always save the last word for my guests here. I'm out of questions. Thank you so much for your time, man. I want to again send my condolences out to the family here of Lorna. And I'm going to leave the last word for you, man. Thank you so much for being here. I
would just say to the workers, contact us. I know you're out there. We're hearing all the stories. If you filed an ocean complaint, no one's listening to you in the media or the politics. You got your guy right here. Send it to me. mjcboston1@yahoo.com. You can also call us. We have a live phone number that also takes voicemails. The number that you see on the show. You can leave a voicemail even on, non-show days. So if you want to send a message that way, I would also just make sure you're following us, subscribing on Twitter. It's at the Young Jurks, on iTunes, especially, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. We put a lot of content out. We're going to stay on this story. It helps us if we have a lot of listeners on those apps. It helps get the story out. So I just want to thank our listeners. And if you're just hearing about this now and you want to support us more, definitely please follow us, Young Jurks, on Twitter, Facebook, and especially like iTunes, because we're not going to stop on this. And I just want to thank all the media and the folks like you, Jay, who are covering this and supporting it on Twitter as well.
Beautiful. Thanks again, Mike. Maybe we'll do a follow-up down the road, man.
I would love to.
I appreciate you, man. Take care.
I've been checking you out in Vermont, and you definitely like the guy up there. You're doing work. Keep doing it.